The bank gave Sadie Wren 30 days to save her family's farm or lose it forever. She had no money, no crop, no way to earn it in time. Everyone in the county told her the same thing: sell and walk away. So when she walked into that bank on the 30th day and paid off every single cent she owed, nobody could understand how. The answer was hiding in the one part of her land that the whole county called worthless. And by the end of this video, you're going to see exactly what it was, and why her grandmother, who died 6 years before, was the one who really saved the farm. If you've ever had everyone in your life tell you to give up, to be realistic, to let it go, this story is going to hit different. Do me one small favor before we start. Tap subscribe, not for me. For every person who was told it was over and decided it wasn't. Now let me take you to a small farm in the Kentucky hills and the worst spring of Sadie Wren's life. To understand how close Sadie came to losing everything, you have to understand how she got there. The Wren farm sat in a fold of the hills in eastern Kentucky, 160 acres, half of it good pasture and bottomland, the other half steep woods and a wide creek bottom that flooded soft every spring. Her family had worked it for 4 generations. Her great-great-grandfather had cleared the first field by hand, and by the spring Sadie turned 23, it was about to slip out of the family's hands for good. It hadn't happened all at once. It almost never does. 2 bad harvest years, a barn roof that had to be replaced, and then the thing that broke them, her father's illness. The hospital bills had piled up through his last winter, and when he passed, he left Sadie 2 things: a farm she loved more than her own life, and a debt she had no idea how to pay. The letter came on a Tuesday, 30 days. Pay the balance, or the bank would begin foreclosure. Now be honest with yourself. If you got that letter, what would you do? Because almost everyone Sadie knew had the same answer: sell. There was already a buyer circling. A development company out of Lexington, Callaway Land Group, had been sniffing around the hollow for 2 years, buying up old farms, turning them into lots. Their man, Hollis Callaway, had already left 2 cards in her mailbox. He was offering enough to clear the debt and leave a little over. Take it, people said. It's a fair offer. You're young. Start fresh. Her uncle said it. The neighbors said it, kindly. Even the loan officer at the bank, a tired, decent man named Mr. Pruitt, said it without saying it. The look on his face said he didn't see another way. And Sadie almost listened. She had the pen in her hand. But there was one voice she kept hearing that told her to wait. And it belonged to a woman who'd been dead for 6 years. Sadie's grandmother, Ruth Wren, had run that farm through times harder than anything Sadie had seen. Ruth had buried a husband, raised 3 children on what the land gave, and held the place together through droughts and floods and lean winters that would have sent most people running. And Ruth had one rule that nobody in the family ever fully understood: you did not touch the bottoms. The bottoms were the back 80 acres, the low, wet woods along Cane Creek, where the old trees grew thick and the ground stayed soft most of the year. To everyone else in the county, it was wasted land. You couldn't plant it. You couldn't graze it well. The smart thing, people always said, was to log off those big old trees for the timber money and drain the rest for pasture. Ruth never would. You leave the bottoms be, she'd tell anyone who asked. Your great-granddaddy left them be. There's a reason. She never explained the reason, and after she passed, the family mostly forgot about it. The bottoms just sat there, wild, useless, and according to Callaway's offer, the cheapest part of the whole farm. So why, 6 years after Ruth died, did Sadie keep hearing her grandmother tell her not to sell? She didn't know yet. But the night before she was supposed to sign Callaway's papers, she went looking for an answer in the one place she hadn't checked: her grandmother's things. In the bottom of Ruth's old cedar chest, under the quilts and the photographs, Sadie found a bundle of letters tied with string. And they weren't family letters. They were from a land trust. The letters were a back and forth going back nearly 15 years between Ruth Wren and an organization called the Cane Creek Land Trust. And as Sadie read them by lamplight, the worthless bottoms started to look like something else entirely. It turned out Ruth hadn't kept those woods wild out of stubbornness. She'd known something. Years back, a biologist walking the creek had told her what she had down there, and Ruth had quietly looked into it, written letters, asked questions, and then, like she did with everything, kept it to herself, because the useless swamp the whole county told her to drain was one of the last untouched stands of old-growth bottomland forest left in that part of Kentucky, a creek so clean it still held species that had vanished from every farm around it, the kind of land that, once it's gone, does not come back, and to the right people, that wasn't worthless at all. It was rare. It was the kind of place there were grants to protect. Sadie sat up most of the night, reading and rereading. Her grandmother had started something and never finished it. There was a name in the most recent letter, a woman at the Land Trust named Carol Briggs. The letter was old. Sadie had no idea if the offer still stood, if the program still existed, if any of it was real. But for the first time in weeks, she felt something other than dread. Now here's the part most people don't understand about saving a farm. You can't outwork a deadline like that. 30 days isn't enough time to grow a crop or raise a herd or earn your way out. Sadie knew that, so she stopped trying to make money the slow way and started trying to prove the land was already worth more, exactly as it was, than anyone had ever guessed. The next morning, before the sun was fully up, she was on the phone. Carol Briggs at the Land Trust was real. The program was real. And what she told Sadie on that first call made her grip the edge of the table. A conservation easement. In plain terms, the Land Trust, using a mix of state conservation money and a private donor fund set aside for exactly this kind of emergency, could buy the development rights to the bottoms. Sadie would keep the land. She'd keep farming the rest of the farm, same as always. She just agreed in writing and forever, never to log it or pave it or drain it. In exchange, she'd get a lump sum, and because of the rarity of that creek bottom, and because Ruth had already done the groundwork years before, the surveys, the early paperwork, Carol thought the number could be enough to pay the bank in full. But thinking it could work and getting it done in under a month were two very different things. These deals normally take a year. Sadie had 26 days. There were appraisals to rush. A biologist had to walk the creek and confirm what Ruth's letters claimed. The Donor Funds Board had to approve an emergency release. And the bank had to agree to hold off on foreclosure long enough for any of it to close. And not everyone wanted her to succeed. Hollis Calloway came back the second week. He'd heard something was up. Small counties don't keep secrets. And his easy smile had gone a little thin. He raised his offer. Then he raised it again. He told her gently that these land trust deals fall through all the time, that she was gambling the whole farm on a maybe, that the smart, safe move was the check in his hand right now. And the worst part was, he wasn't entirely wrong. If the easement fell through, she'd have spent her 30 days chasing a dream, and she'd lose everything, the bottoms included. Her uncle begged her to take Calloway's money. The neighbors went quiet around her, the way people do when they think you're about to make a mistake they can already see. Sadie thanked Calloway for his offer, and she told him no. The next 2 weeks were the longest of her life. The biologist walked the creek and came back with his eyes lit up. What Ruth's letters said was true, and then some. The appraisal came in. The donor board agreed to meet early. Piece by piece, the thing her grandmother had started 15 years before began, impossibly, to come together. But she still needed the bank to wait. And with 9 days left, Mr. Pruitt told her, with real regret, that the bank's hands were tied unless she could bring him something signed. A real commitment, not a maybe. 9 days to turn 15 years of her grandmother's quiet work into one signed page. Could she do it? She honestly didn't know. The deadline landed on a Friday. The Land Trust Board had met 2 days before. The donor fund had voted. The papers, the formal agreement to purchase the development rights to the Cane Creek bottoms for a sum large enough to clear every cent the Wren farm owed, had been signed at 8 o'clock that morning with 1 hour to spare before the courier left. Sadie drove to the bank with the envelope on the seat beside her, and she did not let herself believe it until she was standing in the lobby. The county already knew it was foreclosure day for the Wren place. That's how small towns work. There were people in that bank who'd come in on other business and just happened to linger. Calloway's name had been floated as the buyer. Folks expected to watch a young woman lose her family's farm. What they watched instead was Sadie Wren walk up to Mr. Pruitt's desk, slide a manila envelope across it, and say, "I believe this covers it. All of it." Mr. Pruitt opened it. He read the first page. Then He read it again, slower. And the tired, decent man who'd spent a month sure there was no way out of this, he sat back in his chair, and a slow smile broke across his face. "Where on earth," he said quietly, "did you find this?" "In the bottom," Sadie said. "The part everybody told me to sell first. The debt was paid that day, in full. The foreclosure was stopped, and the back 80 acres of wet, wild, worthless woods, the part Calloway had valued at almost nothing, turned out to be the only thing on the whole farm valuable enough to save it, because Ruth Wren had known, 15 years before her granddaughter ever needed it, exactly what that land was worth. She'd just been waiting for someone to finish what she started. Sadie stood in that bank lobby and didn't feel triumph. She felt something quieter, relief that buckled her knees a little, and a gratitude aimed at a woman who'd been dead 6 years and had reached forward through time to catch her. The story moved through the county the way these stories do, fast and then faster. At first, nobody quite believed it. The Wren girls saved the farm by keeping the swamp, by promising never to drain it. Folks had to come see it to understand, and over the next month, a few of them did. They drove out, walked down to the creek bottom with Sadie, and stood there while she explained what her grandmother had known all along. Hollis Calloway packed up his cards and his thin smile and moved on to the next hollow. He'd offered her money for the land. He'd never once thought to ask what made it special. An old neighbor named Earl Combs came out near the end of that summer, a man who'd told her flat out, weeks before, that she was a fool not to take Calloway's offer. He stood at the edge of the bottoms a long time, looking at the old trees and the clean water. "Your grandmother," he finally said, "was the smartest person I ever knew, and I spent 40 years thinking she was just stubborn about those woods." Sadie smiled. "So did I," she said, "right up until they saved my life. The Cane Creek bottoms are protected now, forever. No one will ever drain them or log them or pave them into lots." The Land Trust used Sadie's farm as an example, and within 2 years, 3 other families along that creek had protected their own bottomland the same way, turning the worthless parts of their farms into the very thing that kept the rest of the farm in the family. Sadie still farms the Wren place, the good fields up top, the same as 4 generations before her, and down along the creek, the old trees still stand in water, exactly the way her grandmother left them. Exactly the way her great-grandfather left them before that. Here's the thing about the parts of our lives that everyone tells us to give up on. The worthless acre, the stubborn old rule, the thing the smart people say to cut loose. Sometimes that's the very thing that's been quietly holding everything else up, and you don't find out until the day the bank comes calling. Ruth Wren spent her whole life protecting something she couldn't fully explain, for a reason that wouldn't matter until long after she was gone. And when the day finally came, the day it was all supposed to be lost, the land she'd refused to give up reached forward 30 days and 100 years and held the whole family up. Sadie Wren never set out to prove the whole county wrong. She set out to keep a promise to her grandmother. In the end, that promise saved everything.